Hey Sharks! Tonight we're going to be learning about the natural regions of the world. You're going to be using the flipbook sheet that you got in class today as your flip notes. So we're going to go with some instructions for the flipbook just because they can be a little bit confusing. So you'll need 2 pieces of paper, the natural regions of the world sheet, and a notebook sheet of paper. The first thing you're going to do is where you have the dotted lines, as you can see in the first picture, is you're going to cut along the dotted lines. Do not cut the solid lines, just the dotted lines. Then the second picture is what yours should look like. So you should just basically have that white border around the sheet cut off. You're going to flip it over like it is in the third picture, and you're going to glue right down the center, which is the part that says natural regions of the world. Your fourth step should look like that. You have your glue down the center of the line. Then you're going to get your notebook sheet of paper and glue it down onto the notebook sheet of paper. Then you're going to cut each individual region along the dotted line. So again, cut in between each of the regions until you reach the solid black line, which should be pretty easy since that part is glued down. When you're done with this flip video, this is what your flipbook should look like. Alright, so now that you have that, let's get on to these regions. So the first one up is tropical rainforest. The climate's really hot and wet all year. The plant life there is thick trees. They have the really big leaves, and they stay green all year round. Then you have tropical grassland. This climate is hot all year, and then they have wet and dry season. So sometimes it's raining a lot, and then sometimes there is no rain for long periods of time. The plant life is tall grasses with some trees. This one kind of reminds me of, oh gosh, now I can't think of it. Oh, Lion King. That's what this reminds me of. You have a Mediterranean where the climate is hot and dry summers, cool to mild winters, and the plant life is you have open house forests, some clumps of trees, and there's lots of shrubs and herbs and grasses. Then you have a temperate forest. So the climate is you have warm summers and then cold to cool winters, and then the plant life is mixed forest with some trees, and during those cold to cool winters, the trees will lose their leaves, but then there will be some that will stay green all year round. Then you have a cool forest. The climate here is cool to mild summers and then long cold winters, so you can see in the picture there's lots of snow on the ground. The plant life here is there's mostly trees with needles, so like things like pine trees, like Christmas tree kind of trees. They stay green all year round, and then some trees will lose the leaves in the winter. And then you have a cool grassland, where here you have warm summers, cool winters, and then drier than forest regions. So it's not going to have, it's not going to be as wet in the air, and it's just going to be a lot drier and cooler. The plant life here, you have prairies, so it'll have tall, thick grass, and then it has higher lands with shorter grass. And you have a desert, which you hope you never get stranded in because it's hot all the time there, and there's very, very little rain. The plant life is there is very few plants. It's just sand or bare soil. If there are plants, there will be like a cactus, maybe some grass, some bushes, but that's about it. You have high mountains, so the climate can vary depending on the altitude. So if you think of like Mount Everest, when it's obviously very cold up there and it's covered in snow pretty much all the time, but when you're at a lower altitude, it'll still be cold, but it won't be as windy, and the air will be dry, but it won't be as dry as when you get up to the top. And the air will also be just like a little bit normal. It won't be thin, so you can still breathe just fine and you won't have breathing issues. But the higher you go, the colder it gets, the windier it gets, and the thinner the air gets, which makes it harder to breathe. And same thing with plant life. towards the bottom of like a high mountain climate, you'll probably have a little bit more like grass or bushes, maybe even a couple trees. But the higher you go, all that plant life will start going away. Then you have the tundra, which you have short, cool summers here, long, cold winters, you can see in the picture. And then there's little rain or snow. So obviously those taller mountains is where the snow is going to be. In the plant life, you have rolling plains. So there's no trees. There's some patches of moss, short grass, and a couple flowering plants. Your last natural region is the Arctic region. This climate is very, very cold. It's covered in ice all year long, and there are sadly no plants here. So those are all of your natural regions of the world. So make sure you got the climate and the plant life down for each of those on your flip book. Have a good night.